I'm back. Hello. It's been a while. It's been over a month. I am well. I am alive. I am thriving. I have missed you all so much. I have missed making videos so much. I'm here. I'm back. So, how are you all doing? I hope you're all doing really well. I hope autumn has been treating you well. I hope your October spooky season month went really, really well. I have a lot to catch you up all on, so I thought let's just get cozy. Let's have a chat. I will be sharing all of the books that I read in September and October because I didn't do that, and I did read some pretty decent books that I would love to share with you all. But first, let's talk about why I fell off the face of the earth in booktube terms. I feel so awful about it. I gave no notice. I gave no updates. Just gone. And I'm so sorry. You all actually seem really far away right now. I'm gonna bring you in a little bit. Let's get intimate. Let's get cozy. That seems unstable. There we go, babies. Okay, that's better. Okay, yeah, so it's been over a month since I've made a video. It was very unintentional. Life just came at me really, really hard, really fast, and I had to put a lot of my passions and hobbies to the side in order to maintain my sanity with my business, because I am a small business owner. I am just a one-woman show doing absolutely everything as a wedding and portrait photographer. So historically, October is always my busiest season. I remember even in September telling you all about how anxious I was for the upcoming photography season. It's always my busiest month because it's beautiful outside. It's beautiful, it's stunning, we have gorgeous colors, everyone wants photos. I just feel like overnight, I felt a huge amount of success, quote unquote success. I was booking a lot. I was getting multiple inquiries every day. I'm filling up for 2022 weddings already. It's just been very overwhelming, and I feel like that happened overnight for me. And historically, November is when things peter off for me, and I'm able to kind of return back to a routine, a sense of normalcy. But alas, November is already completely booked for me. I have a few spots left for photo sessions that I'm just kind of leaving open just in case. But honestly, I have shoots booked all the way until the end of November. So it's been a lot. And as this is my first year on BookTube, I had no idea what that balance would look like, and if there was such a thing as balance with doing BookTube, which is such a huge passion of mine, mixed with my photography business, which is an even bigger passion of mine, I feel like. It didn't go well. I just had to drop absolutely everything, and it didn't really cross my mind to even try to make videos because I was just that busy. And in no ways am I trying to glorify or brag about how busy I've been, because I feel like that is so unhealthy, and I am definitely feeling the repercussions of it on my mental health, my physical health. My social life is non-existent. I feel very isolated in the amount of work that I have. I've had to say no to basically every type of social outing I've been invited to, and it sucks. It hurts a lot. I'm tired all the time. I'm anxious all the time. I feel overwhelmed all the time. And I am in no way trying to glorify that situation. I'm so happy that overnight I feel like I have found the success I've been working really, really hard to achieve for 4 years. Because on October 31st, my business did celebrate its 4-year anniversary of being an official LLC, which is amazing. I've been doing this for 4 years, and it feels like, yeah, in the blink of an eye, those things paid off, and I'm just very, very overwhelmed right now. It's amazing, honestly. Like, this has been my dream, and it's sad when the dream all of a sudden goes from like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, I'm booking so much, to like, how do I actually physically do this work? If I take a day off, then no work gets done because I'm the only one in this business, and that's terrifying. It's very anxiety-inducing. It's hard not to go about my daily life and not feel guilty that I'm not working, because I am the only one I can rely on. I'm not outsourcing anything to anybody else. Maybe I can get to the point in my business where I can start delegating, but right now, like, if I take a day off or if I take an evening off, that means like nothing gets done. And I'm just setting my future self up for failure and even more work the next day. And that's terrifying, and that is hard, and I just didn't really ever think, since it is my first year in BookTube, that I would just drop this side project and hobby off the entire face of the planet and be that busy. So now I know, as it is my first year on BookTube, hopefully next year I can maybe find a little bit more of balance. I'm trying to set more boundaries with myself and trying not to book multiple weddings on the same weekend, but it's hard because I just genuinely get excited and I genuinely want to work with everybody. It's such a big, like, glowy feeling in me, and I get so excited. So I'm trying to set boundaries so that way next year myself can be a little bit more balanced with being able to have time to hang out with friends and family, making my mental health a priority again. And I'm just genuinely looking forward to winter season because I do feel like maybe it will start to peter out. But who knows, like maybe this busyness I've been experiencing is my new norm. Like things changed so much for me and things were booking up so fast, and it's amazing, but it's also horrifying because I don't know how to deal with it because I haven't had to deal with that. At the same time, I am still working my part-time job, 20 hours a week, so that's just been really difficult because on those days I really can't do anything else. I can't work on my business, I can't respond to emails, I'm just off the grid. And once I finish my part-time job, it's really hard to feel motivated after work. Now it's a different time of year and it's getting darker way earlier. It's hard for me to feel motivated to continue working on my business once I finish my part-time job. Like after my part-time job, I just want to relax. Anyway, I'm blabbing. I just really wanted to fill you in on what's been going on. And if you're ever curious to see a little bit more of me, because I do post pretty regularly on my Instagram stories on my photography page, I have that linked down below, my Instagram. So feel free to give me a follow on there if you ever notice that like, girl is not posting. Where is she? Is she okay? If you want to see what I've been up to and what my photography business looks like in this busy season, definitely feel free to follow along. I feel like I'm definitely way more active on there these days. But it's November. I have missed BookTube so incredibly much, and I'm just so ready to get back into this. And I have still been reading, but it's been really hard to read. I haven't had time during the days to read. I've been reading like just before bed, listening to audiobooks that honestly have not wowed me. I ended up DNFing so many books in September and October. I was being very picky and particular, and I am just so ready to find like a 5-star book. And all of the books here, unfortunately, none of them were 5 stars for me, but I do feel like that they offer something important, and I do want to talk about them with you all and hopefully inspire you to maybe pick them up. So I hope you're all doing well. That was a lot. I didn't mean to come at you there with my woes and my busyness. I am so grateful for how busy my season is, but it's definitely affected me in a way that I really didn't anticipate, and I'm definitely looking forward to setting boundaries. I feel like I already have been just kind of blocking off one Saturday a month to be with my partner, actually just hang out together and have date days. That's just so important to me, and I really want to start prioritizing that in my life. So I'm gonna start vlogging again. I started a vlog last night, so definitely be on the lookout for that. Moving forward, we'll see how much I can produce. If my winter season slows down enough, I definitely want to get back to making 2 videos a week like I did before. But for right now, it might just be 1 video a week. We shall see. But I'm just so excited to be back. Thank you all so much for just supporting me. Several of you checked in on me and were like, are you doing okay? I am. It was just very chaotic and very busy and just honestly just beyond my wildest expectations. And I'm really grateful for that. This photography business of mine has been a dream for years, and now it feels like it's at this very pivotal point where I either need to backtrack a little bit and set boundaries, or I need to start outsourcing. I'm in that weird growth position where I'm just not sure which direction is best. So anyway, let's go ahead and talk about the books that I read in September and October. I need to just take a quick coffee break. It's been a while since I've vlogged. This is a lot of talking, and I feel like this is the most talking I've done in a really, really long time too. Yeah, I've been very antisocial. I have not talked to many people, so this feels very strange. So one moment while I take a little coffee breather and just chill out a second. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So the first book that I read in September was The Dying Game by Avdic. This is the book that in my September TBR jar challenge my dad picked out for me. I showed him my bookshelves and he was like, that one. He said it sounded like Hunger Games mixed with Kafka. Like if Kafka wrote the Hunger Games, and that it was. It is so bizarre and weird, and I really enjoyed this book. I really just felt so pulled to start this one as the first book of September. So it takes place in this very bizarre alternate history future in 2037. If the Soviet Union never fell and it's now under the Confederation of Friendship or something, the Totalitarian Union of Friendship. And it takes place off the coast of Sweden on this small island where this woman, our main character, Anya, is placed there and is told that she is to fake her own death in order to kind of rule out candidates for a job position. And this very eclectic array of characters come to the island, and so she's in on the secret that she's going to fake her death in order to see how everyone else reacts, and they are going to be the candidates for this job. Based on how they react, they are going to be pulled out and not be taken into consideration for this promotion. What's interesting about this book is the way that it's written. It is so hands-off. It is so pushed back. You never really get a sense of who people are, what their motives are. We never even know what the business is that Anya is working for. You never understand it. It's never explained, but she's in this very rough position where she is a really strong worker. She is very intense with her job. She has let her mother take care of her own daughter, so she barely sees her own daughter. She is starting to get burnt out, and basically the head of this company says, if you do this one job, you will be able to survive with never working again. That's how much I'm going to pay you. This is your way out. Just do this one more job and you're done. And then things happen. It feels a little Agatha Christie with people on this remote island and weird things are happening. I never truly understood the reason as to why this author decided to make it take place in 2037 in this alt history time period. It never really affected the plot. They would kind of talk briefly in the beginning about the current world and what it looks like, and like they really went in depth at the beginning here about like what the history is. The Protectorate of Sweden is no longer a member of the UN. Like a lot of interesting information, but it never really affected the plot. So I was very curious. I did really enjoy this though. There were plot twists, there were things that just didn't make sense. We were so pushed back. We were never allowed a closer look at certain things. And I really did enjoy that. I didn't feel like it needed anymore. I feel like it was very complete in its sense of distance between us and the characters and this world and this business. It felt so shrouded in secrecy. And I really enjoyed that element of this book. So overall, I did give this 4 stars. Looking back though, from November now to when I read this, like the first week of September, I don't remember a whole lot, but I do remember like the feelings it gave me, which was this sense of just overall mystery and not understanding and not really feeling dissatisfied with that mystery. I don't know if that makes sense. It just kind of like opened up a void in me and it just was like, nope, we're not going to fill that void. All the questions you have, we are not going to answer them. And I appreciated that about this book. So overall 4 stars. This was one that I found at Dollar Tree and I'm just really happy I read it. It's very eerie, a very autumnal like book. If you're interested in reading it in November, I definitely recommend it. It takes place in this very rainy, remote coast, Sweden island. Like it's just very bizarre and I really did enjoy that. So 4 stars overall. That was a good one. Next is the start of my very disappointing audiobook experiences. Most of the audiobooks that I listened to in the past 2 months were disappointments to me. I really wanted to get into spooky season. I wanted to get into thrillers, especially via audio. I just really wanted to be spooked. I wanted to feel something. So the next book that I listened to was The Hand That Feeds You by A.J. Rich. This is a book that follows a 30-something-year-old woman, I can't even remember her name, who is a professor of psychology or something like that. I honestly can't remember. Oh God, I don't even know how to explain it. I don't even remember where she's based, but it does take place over like a pretty big period of time. And she is in a relationship with this man, and then she comes home from work one day. She is a little bit of a workaholic. They are engaged, but they are in a long distance relationship, and she comes home one day and finds that her partner is completely slaughtered and ripped apart and basically eaten alive by, it looks like, her dogs. Like her dogs in her apartment like ate her partner alive. That's how you open up with the book. She goes into this catatonic shock state. She's panicked. She is fearful. This book does feature a lot of gore, a lot of graphic scenes, a lot of animal cruelty. So definitely be cautious going into it because there is some dog murders. That hurt me more than the human deaths. I feel like that's normal for a lot of people. This book just takes a really long time to unravel and figure things out. There were a lot of those like very random parts in this book where it's Christmas time and our main character would just like walk into town. She's grieving with the death of her partner and just like spends a lot of detail. I feel like the only thing I really remember about this book is the amount of detail. Like she would go into a shop and look at the prices of pillows and home decor for Christmas, and then talking about everything she bought for Christmas to decorate her apartment. Those were the things that stuck out to me, but I was also like, why is this in here? I don't know. So it's supposed to be like a mystery, like a thriller. She meets a whole cast of characters. There's some romantic interests. She starts to develop these very self-destructive behaviors. I don't really know. I don't really remember a whole lot. The ending was, I don't remember. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't shocked. I didn't really feel anything. It wasn't great. The only thing I did enjoy was kind of like the psychology aspects. I liked that this woman did such a strong informational profile. Like she studies the psychology of narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths. And there is a lot of information about that, which I found really, really fascinating. And that's kind of what made me want to listen to this book in the first place, was this intellectual, educated woman as the main character. There is also a very graphic sexual abuse scene. Please be cautious. I was shocked when I got to that part in the book. I was like, I was not anticipating this. This is horrifying. So please just really, really be cautious. It was very uncomfortable. And what I enjoyed about it is that things start to kind of fall apart. I don't really want to give away a whole lot, but basically our main character realizes that throughout the years, she has actually been the one who, even though she's educated in this field, she's been the one to be sexually and physically attracted to people who are sociopaths and psychopaths. And she plays this victim game with herself. She doesn't understand in the moment that they are controlling and abusive, and it's in retrospect that she's like, oh my god, wait, I was just a victim of the people that I study, the people that I'm supposed to be aware of, the people that I'm supposed to be so informed about. So there were some really interesting themes. I don't really remember it being well written. I don't really have much memory of the plot itself, and I kind of just really didn't care. So I don't know. On Goodreads, I think I gave it 3 stars. I think going forward in November, I just don't really feel good about rating books, honestly. I just feel so bad for authors. I don't want to give a book 2 stars, even though I personally didn't enjoy it. Like, what makes me a critic? What makes my opinion worthwhile? I would much rather prefer to like walk you all through it verbally as to why I didn't enjoy a book, rather than just like giving a book 2 stars on Goodreads and leaving. Like, that's just, I don't feel good about that anymore. That's somebody's craft, that's somebody's art. Why do I have the right to criticize it? So I gave it 3 stars, but in my mind it was so not memorable. It's more like a 2-star for me, but again, ratings don't really matter. I can just say I didn't really enjoy it and move on. So there you go. Next, my partner and I finished an audiobook that we had started while we were on our vacation when we got engaged. So this one took 3 months for us to listen to, but we took like, you know, a month off from listening to it. From August when we started it, or technically I think we started it like July 30th, and then we finished it in September. So that was Rabbits by Terry Miles. I was the one who found this book. I was so excited when I found this book because I listened to the podcast Rabbits, I think way back in like 2017 or something like that. I absolutely loved it. I still think that I would recommend the podcast over this book though. The podcast itself is pretty hokey. You have some voice actors that are just a little cringe. The dialogue feels very unnatural, but it's so eerie and weird and trippy, and like I just love everything about it. Rabbits is about this game called Rabbits that's been going on for centuries that us normal folks don't know about, and you find clues. There's never really a strong objective. You don't really understand what the game is ever and it has to deal with people kind of falling down these rabbit holes, finding clues, a lot of kind of Illuminati-esque kind of conspiracies. And I was so excited that we found it for our road trip, so we listened to majority of it while we were traveling from Michigan to Virginia. And at first it really pulled us in. Like we were both like, oh my god, this is so good. Like we couldn't stop listening to it. The first half I would say was really strong for us, and then it really petered out. Like it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. We didn't really understand why characters were doing certain things. We didn't understand their motives. We didn't understand why such strong, important characters were kind of dismissed or just murdered. And we're like, no, they had all the information. Like, why did that happen? So overall, this was, again, like just like a 3-star book for me, but honestly, I rated it 3 stars, but it's more like a 2. I much prefer the podcast, and I would definitely recommend the podcast to you all if you're interested in this kind of eerie, again, very distanced, you never fully understand, but it also has a lot to do with like quantum physics, parallel universes, and timelines, just a lot of like black hole conspiracy kind of things, and I love that so much. But it takes place in like the modern world and has a lot to do with very abnormal kind of people who are very intellectual, but you know, most likely if they went to your high school they were probably made fun of. So I just really love the atmosphere of these stories, the podcast and the book itself. Love the atmosphere. I think the characters are pretty good, but I just did not really enjoy the book. It was very confusing. It left a lot of things unanswered. It felt a little bit like a cop-out at the very end. I don't even remember the ending, but I just remember feeling like very dissatisfied with it. So there's Rabbits. Okay, going back to some physical books. Next I read Crystal Eaters by Shane Jones. This has to be one of the most bizarre books, and I really did enjoy it. I enjoyed this so much. Again, like I just love this cover. I can never get over it. Like look at that inside. This follows a young girl named Remy who lives in this very dystopian society in this village that mines crystals, and these crystals can be used based on their color. They can either be eaten, they can be used for energy and some other things, I'm not sure, but they mine every single day in this village. It's very much like a fable, moral story, but it's written so weirdly. It is very bizarre writing where it's very poetic and disjointed and uncomfortable. Like this whole book is just an uncomfortable experience. If you don't like reading about people missing teeth, fingernails, just dirty, like people peeing in the streets, and there is some domestic and sexual abuse in here that was pretty graphic as well. It's just a very gross book. You would not gain that from the cover, but it is a disgusting book in terms of like bodily fluids and humans' primal instincts. Like it's just gross. So basically Remy has a sick mother, and in this village they all believe that they are born with 100 crystals inside their belly, and that every sort of life form has a crystal count. And when the crystal counts start to go down based on injury, illness, like anything like that, it's just basically like years off your life. You start to lose crystals, and when you're out of crystals, you die. Which I thought was such an interesting concept. I thought was really interesting. And our main character, Remy, has a sick mother, and she is trying so hard to find a way to save her mother and to increase her crystal count, which is just unheard of. Like you can't gain crystals in your lifetime. It's just not possible. And I feel like that's such a great metaphor for like every day of our life. Every day we live is like one day off of what we're gonna keep living. I know, existential angst and crises, but it's just very bizarrely written. It's very strange and surreal, and scary and uncomfortable. At the same time too, there is this large metropolitan city encroaching on the village, and I thought that was really interesting because the way that it's set up, you feel like, oh, this is just a dystopian universe, but really there are like people like us living in cities who have coffee shops and corporate meetings and go to yoga, like just live a normal life, and they are able to watch this mining village who still believe in this crystal count, who don't believe in doctors, who I just found it really interesting. So at the time of finishing this book, I think on my vlog I did say I gave it 5 stars, but in hindsight I just have not thought about this book once. And normally 5 stars like really resonate with me and I think about them all the time, so I definitely think this is more like a 4-star, 3-star book for me. I'm so happy I read it. I'm so happy I found it. It is the most like little tiny bizarre thing I've ever read. Very strange, but I enjoyed it. I like reading really quirky, weird, under the radar kind of books like this. So there's Crystal Eaters. Up next, we have a book that I've already donated, and that was Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom. I had never read the series. I found the first and the second book while thrifting, and I was really, really excited to read them because I was always intrigued to read them when they were first published. I was like, oh my god, this is like my perfect book. I love the Victorian elements, I love the vintage photographs, I love the surreal, the bizarre, these like peculiar children I thought was so interesting, and then I read it and I hated it. I'm so sorry, I freaking hated it. It was so boring. I did not give 2 shits about our main character, whose name I can't even remember. I just despised it. I thought it was so slow and boring for something that visually was so stunning with these vintage found photographs. Didn't care for it. I ended up donating both the first book and the second book to my little free library, and it's gone. It's out of my life. I'm glad I gave it a chance and I read it, so now I know, and I won't ever have that yearning of like, oh, I've always wanted to read that in my lifetime. I read it, did not care for it. I didn't even find it atmospheric, but I feel like it should have been atmospheric because it takes place in this like remote European coast, and it's like windy and like tiny, and these abnormal children from in the past, and like time loops and warps and parallel universes. Like, I thought that would be my freaking jam, but it was not. So there you go. Next, I read Read Me by Leo Benedictus. This I did talk about more in depth in my vlog, so I'll go ahead and link that down below. This was so fun for me. I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed this a lot more than I feel like I anticipated, but we are reading from an unknown male's perspective, and he is a serial stalker. And you find out as you're reading it that he has stalked upwards of like 80, 90 different people in his life, and he just becomes so entrenched with their lives and following them. He quits his job, he becomes this very wealthy person through inheritance, and he has no reason to work, so he just becomes fascinated with people. But he never at the beginning has this sense of like malicious or bad intent with watching people. He never wants to disturb their lives. He never wants to interact with them. He is strictly an observer, which I found really, really interesting. And then he meets one character named Francis, and things start to happen. He starts to go against his own rules and parameters that he set for himself. He starts to become more and more entrenched. And it's very much like the show and the book You have this like kind of creepy guy who's like, no, I just want to protect you and love you and watch you from a distance, but then they just become a little too involved. But the ending of this book is what really, really got me. It's one of those endings you read it and you're like, oh my god, this entire book now makes sense, and you start to rethink everything that happened from the beginning to the end in a different perspective. And I always will applaud that. I love when books make me think and make me reassess what I first thought of the book itself. So overall, I did give this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very creepy. This is definitely more like literary fiction and character development, though. It is not a straight up thriller or mystery. And there are some very graphic, gory scenes as well. Very American Psycho and disturbing and gory and bloody and gross. Like, you know, dismemberment. So be cautious going into it if you're curious, but this is not a fast-paced, edge of your seat kind of thriller at all. I love the way it's written too. It is written as if this unknown character is writing in a journal or something, and he's constantly kind of going back on himself, being like, well, I don't remember this happening, but I made notes of it in my other journal, so it must have happened, but I just don't remember it. So I really liked that. Very unreliable narrator. It's just very interesting. I really enjoyed it, so 4 stars. Okay, next I started a manga series called Girl from the Other Side. Absolutely loved this. I read it over on my Kindle, and I have put a pause in reading it. I read the first 2 books. I put a pause in it because I so desperately want the physical books of these for Christmas, so I've added them to my Christmas list. I would love to be gifted this whole series, and I can have them in my hand in physical format. So I read the first 2 books. Sublime. Absolutely sublime. The most beautiful artwork, the most beautiful story. It is very like eerie, creepy, cottagecore coziness. It's about this young, tiny little girl named Shiva who is kind of orphaned, and she's being taken care of by this man that she calls the teacher, and he has like this kind of head of a deer, but a long tail, and he's very tall and slender, and he dresses very nicely, and they live in this tiny little cottage in the middle of nowhere, and the world around them is falling apart. People want to kill him, and it's just so good. It's just them waking up and baking together, but then getting into like perilous events and bad things happening, but then always going back home and like chopping firewood and looking for food and baking bread, and like it's just so freaking wholesome. Love it. 5 stars. So yeah, I can't wait to read the rest of the series, but I am hoping that I can get the physical versions so I can love them forever and reread them multiple times. I would love that. It's just so good. And the last book that I read in the month of September was an audiobook called Yesternight by Kat Winters. This is when I started going for a lot of daily walks, and it was, you know, the weather starting to turn. I just wanted something like cozy, a little bit of a thriller, but just kind of like more of like a cozy mystery kind of thing. I'm just gonna start with this. Like, I just want to tell you right now, I straight up hated this book. I hated this book so much. I don't even remember the main character's name, but basically it's this woman during Prohibition era. She studies psychology. She goes to this small town on the Pacific Northwest, and I was like, ooh, atmosphere vibes, great. And she's sent there to take a peek and give psychological tests to this young girl who believes that she has been reincarnated and had a past life where she murdered people. And I was like, oh my god, I'm intrigued. And then it's, you know, read aloud to me in my ears, and I was just rolling my eyes and groaning. There were just some very strong kind of like pick me energy. There's a lot of strong like meet cute energy, a lot of like weird romance things going on, a lot of ridiculous dialogue, a lot of frustrating just, oh god, I just did not like this book. So yeah, I don't even remember the ending. I just was so underwhelmed and just really did not like it at all. It gave me absolutely nothing. I don't even remember it, and I just still get this feeling of like that wasted, you know, 8 hours of my life. I think it was like an 8-hour audiobook, and I just can't ever get those 8 hours back, so sorry. Oh shoot, I missed a book. Totally forgot. Before Yesternight, I did finish reading Dark Harvest by Norman Partridge. This was also included in a reading vlog, so I'll link that down below. But this is a very cool, weird book. I think more people should definitely read it, especially around spooky season, so go ahead and add it to your want to read list for next Halloween. This takes place in the 1960s in a small Midwestern town, and it follows this group of boys who are unleashed onto the town on Halloween night to go and kill this person called the October Boy, featured on the cover here, who is a jack-o'-lantern head. His body is made of vines, and he walks around the town with a giant knife, and his whole objective is to get to the church by midnight without being killed, and the boys have to kill him. So they're unleashed onto the town at night, no supervision, they just kind of go crazy. It's all these boys who are like 16 years or older. It is written very Stephen King-like. It is very filled with like toxic boyhood and masculinity and like jocks and police officers and a lot, yeah, just a lot of like masculine Stephen King kind of vibes. But what I enjoyed about this was the twists in it. It was so eerie, and it just felt like a really bigger, broader picture of like a moral about how fathers don't set their sons up for success, and it is just so about being strong and get her done, and very American Boy vibes. So overall, I did give this 4 stars. I thought it was really interesting, and I just feel like more people should read it. I feel like this is very underread. It was the winner of the Bram Stoker Award way back when. I have no idea what year, I just feel like more people should read this, and I feel like more people would enjoy it, especially if you do like Stephen King's writing style, and the kind of intellectual writing style. Like, it's just very smart, it's very strong, it's very particular, and I just really enjoyed that quality of this writing. So yeah, 4 stars. Moving into October. October was my busiest month of the year. I did not read a whole lot, just a heads up. And it wasn't a great reading month for me at all. I was grumpy most of it because every time I started a book, I was just like not liking it, and I DNF'd so many different audiobooks, and I just could not get into stuff. So anyway, first book I read was Anya's Ghost, which is this cutie little graphic novel by Vera Brosgol. Severe water damage. I love it. Found this while thrifting. This follows this very pubescent, grumpy teenage girl named Anya, who has some Russian roots, and she goes to school. She's kind of bullied a little bit, and she falls down a well, and in there she meets a ghost because there's a skeleton at the bottom of the well, and the ghost becomes her friend, and they become, you know, they start doing some bad stuff together. They start to, I don't know, just kind of get into trouble together, and things are revealed. It just felt very YA, which I could have just assumed by the cover, but like it really did feel a little YA while reading it. The story was very predictable. It didn't really surprise me or wow me. It didn't really make me feel anything, so I think I just gave this like 3 stars. I can't really even remember. I did enjoy the reading experience though. I just love reading graphic novels so much, but yeah, this one just like didn't make me feel anything, and I feel like that's the issue I had recently in this like autumnal months, is like books didn't really make me feel anything. That makes me sad. I want a book that like makes me feel sad or happy or excited, and like I just don't feel like I got a whole lot of that. So Anya's Ghost. Then I listened to Dress Your Family in Corduroy and Denim by David Sedaris. Once it gets colder out, like I just crave David Sedaris in my ears telling me stories. Like I just want his voice, and maybe I think I'm starting to get to the point where I've read so much of his work that I might just have to start re-listening to his audiobooks, but I don't care. Like I just, when it gets cold out, like it's just such a comfort for me. And my partner and I get to see David Sedaris live in January, I believe, so I'm really, really excited for that. But this is my first time listening to this collection of essays, and I just enjoyed it. I think I listened to it in one day. I want to re-listen to it because I might have tuned a little bit out. I just enjoy listening to a story so much. Like it just feels like I'm listening to a radio program, like it's Christmas time, and it's just comforting to me at this point. It's just so comforting. I've just been listening to his stories for years, and I think that will probably be the next audiobook I listen to right now here in November, is just another one of his collections, because it's just such a comfort and joy for me. So yeah. Oh boy, friends. Oh boy. Next I read Magic Lessons by Alice Hoffman. I'm so sorry. I hated this book. I'm so sorry. I hated this book. I hated it. It took me so long to get through it. I hated it. I thought about DNFing it at least 50 times. When I started it, I was like, oh my god, this is so cozy. Just so many like lists of botanical herbs and spices and flowers and flora and fauna and like all that. That's my jam. That's my shit. About witches, you know, in the 1600s, and I was like, oh my god, this is like such a cozy October, like, oh my god, magical. I hated it. I hated it. I feel like, again, we were kept at arm's distance from these characters. It just felt so like they did this, they did that, they did this, and then at the very end it's like, here's the theme, and I was like, you gave me no, it was just such a linear timeline. It was so fucking boring. I'm so sorry. Like, I was bored to tears. I did not care. I hated these characters. It was just so apparent where things were going. It was so frustrating. I was like, why are they even doing this? Why are they doing that? I don't understand. Get over it. Like, it just, I hated it. And that sucks because typically, historically, I love Alice Hoffman's writing. I've read several of her books, and this has been getting such great reviews that it's so autumnal and fall and cozy and beautiful, and like I just couldn't. I kept telling myself while reading, like, you should be liking this. You should be enjoying this book. And I just was not at all. And I just kept forcing myself to read it. And So yeah, this will be going in my donate bin. It took me so long to get through this, friends. Like, I cannot express how long that I think this book took me, like 3 weeks to get through. I just couldn't. I was so underwhelmed. I was so bored. Yeah, it made me really not want to pick up Alice Hoffman's other books. I have one more from Alice Hoffman on here, The Dove Keeper, which based on reviews has gotten great, wonderful reviews, but oh, I don't know. It's gonna be like maybe a few years before I read another Alice Hoffman. This really, really put me off. I cannot pinpoint like exactly what about it just like did nothing for me. It just felt so bland. It felt like biting into a mushy apple that just had no flavor. It had no crispness. It was just kind of like mushy, you know, and it's kind of like grainy in your mouth. That was this book. Like it just had no like crunch. It had no bitterness. It had no sweetness. Like it was just, ugh. Like, and that's the only like kind of sweet thing that maybe you packed in your school lunch and you were like, I'm so excited to eat my apple. And then you're just like, do I keep eating it? And you just do. You just kind of keep eating it even though it gives you nothing. Magic lessons. I'm so sorry. Next I listened to another audiobook that it was so unmemorable. I'm sorry, friends. Maybe you did not come here for me to just be so sassy about some books, but like I read some shite books that just really underwhelmed me. I listened to Go to My Grave by Catriona McPherson. Found this and just thought, yeah, it's spooky season. I want a murder mystery. That sounds great. So not memorable. I don't even remember a whole lot about it. It takes place at this like bed and breakfast that this young woman runs. This group decides to rent out the entire inn for the weekend, and it's a family of cousins, and they're all older cousins. They're like kind of in their 30s or 40s, and there's like a lot of tension, a lot of like eeriness, and then the innkeeper is just like being such a nosy little bee, and she's just like listening in on their conversations and getting way too involved for somebody who just works at the inn. There is a really good plot twist though, I thought was really interesting because the story does bounce between kind of like modern day and then like the 1980s. And so at first you're just kind of like, who are we reading from? Like whose perspective is the 1980s one? Like I'm just so confused. And then it does mesh together really, really well. So that did surprise me. That kind of plot twist was great, but I don't even remember the ending. I don't even remember if did I tune it out or do I just not remember it? I felt very underwhelmed and I don't really remember a whole lot of it, so yeah, sorry. Then I listened to Horrid by Katrina Leno. It was on Hoopla. I have heard nothing but great things about this book. I've seen the cover absolutely everywhere, so I was like, why not? We are still in spooky season. I think I finished it like a few days before Halloween. So I listened to it. And again, I was so underwhelmed. I was very shocked and surprised. This sounded, and again, maybe it was my experience of listening to it rather than reading it physically. It was very YA. The dialogue was very YA. It felt very hokey. It felt very cheesy to me. There were a few times where I was like, ooh, I got shivers. I got goosebumps. But basically this follows a young girl who's like 16, 17, 18, something like that. Her and her mother moved from California to the East Coast somewhere, I think, because our main character's father unexpectedly passed away and basically left them in a bunch of debt. So they had to sell the house and just go back to the mom's family home that she had inherited. And spooky stuff starts happening in the house. Very kind of classic haunted house. There are some like paranormal things going on, some eeriness. I just felt nothing. Again, like I was just surprised it was so YA. For some reason, the cover and the way I've heard people talk about it, saying how good it is, and like, I didn't feel any of that. I didn't feel wowed by this. It did not feel original to me at all. Yeah, I was very disappointed in this one. I think, again, on Goodreads, I just gave it run-of-the-mill 3 stars, but I was so underwhelmed, especially because of all the hype that I've heard about it. I was just very shocked. It just felt very teenagey. It didn't bring up any bigger themes. Honestly, if you've read White is for Witching by Helen Oyeyemi, you might be kind of like, at this book. There are way too many freaking similarities between Horrid and White is for Witching, and White is for Witching, I believe, definitely came out way earlier than Horrid. I'll have to double check my sources, but in August here, yeah. White for Witching came out in 2009 and Horrid came out in 2020, so you do the math. Okay, bye. You have such similar themes. You have a haunted house, you have young main characters, and you have pica, which is the kind of disease where you start eating inanimate objects. Like, it was too similar, but if you want something that is way more beautifully written and way more cryptic and eerie and such, like from a much more interesting perspective, just read White for Witching. It's a fantastic book. It is so freaking creepy. It will actually give you the spine tinglies, but it's very uncomfortable. It also deals a lot with racism and discrimination. So if you just want a broader, better book, just read White for Witching. Sorry, I am getting way too harsh. I need to like calm down. I'm so sorry. Anyway, last book I read was again another graphic novel, which is ApocalyptiGirl, an aria for the End Times by Andrew MacLean. When will it be my time to be happy? I did not like this. Obviously, this author had a very strong vision for this world. It is during an apocalyptic time. You are given backstories as to like what has happened in the world. The world is kind of separated into like these different tribes. It's kind of reverts from like a metropolitan urban city, kind of very futuristic, back down to very primal civilizations where they are very forced to use like natural elements and stuff, but they like really, I don't know. You are just kept at such a distance, but this is one of the cases where it is such a short graphic novel that you just need more. Why would I be rooting for Arya? I don't know anything about her. She does have a really cute cat though named Jellybeans, and Jellybeans was my fave. But was it really a character? Not really. It's just a sidekick. I don't know what to say. This just did nothing for me. Yeah, the ending was kind of laughable, not gonna lie. It was just so like on the nose, like like it was just like too obvious what the author was trying to like portray, and I just don't like that. Like, let me just believe and think about the moral. Like, you don't need to like just give it to me like that. You don't need to just like hand it to me. Don't hand it. I get it. So yeah, there's that. So there we have it, friends. That is my update. I hope you forgive me for how sassy that got, for how kind of underwhelming so many of these reads were. It was a very difficult time. I was very cranky that I was reading such shite books that were not wowing me. I only really want to be reading 5 stars in my life. I want to be filled with love and joy for literature and books, and the past few months just like really have not been that. So be excited though, because in November already, I have finished 2 books already, and they have both been 4 stars. Very close to almost 5, but not quite, and I cannot wait to talk to you all about them and like actually gush, because they are finally very just unique, strong, bizarre, weird books that I feel like more people need to be aware of and read, because based on Goodreads, hardly anyone has ever heard of or read these books. So I'm genuinely excited to talk about them, so please stay tuned. I hope I didn't put you off listening to me rant and ramble about my life and how difficult things have been, but then also pairing it with just not super great reading months. But I am very hopeful that things will get better. So thank you all so incredibly much for being here. I know this was a long video, but just thank you so incredibly much. I'm so happy to be back. I'm so happy just to like be here and to like casually talk to you all about literature. Like, this is my dream. Like, this is such a big love for me. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all again very soon for my next video. And I promise I will actually be seeing you soon for my next video. I am pinky promising, not like last time when I said I'd see you soon and then I didn't see you for over a month. I promise. Stay cozy, my friends. Bye!